The biggest mistake that single Christian women make when dating is passively waiting on God's timing. Let us explain. Now, if you don't know who we are, my name is Matt,
And I'm Kelly.
and we are coaches that help single women have the love that they want. So, with that said, let's get into it.
So basically, we just want to talk about the idea of waiting passively on God's timing. And sometimes we see, especially with Christian women, that there is such a trust in God, which is beautiful, right? The Bible says that we should trust God and we need to trust God. It's a crucial part, actually, of the dating process. But where we think it goes too far is that word passively. So it's when you think, or when a woman thinks, I'm just gonna focus on other things. I'm just gonna not put myself out there and date because God's gonna provide me with my husband.
And there could be truth to that, right? And at the same time, there's also our part that we get to bring into the dating process, into the relationship. So there is an amazing story. Do you want to tell the story?
Yeah, so the story that we're gonna share today, you probably heard it maybe, but it's a story of a man who is drowning. And this drowning man, it's just like it's called the parable of the drowning man. So it's a story of a man, he is drowning, and he asks God for help. He prays and he says, God, please help me because I'm drowning. And then a neighbor comes over and he says, hey, can I help you? And the man says, no, God is coming. It's okay. He's going to help me. So the neighbor leaves, and then a boat comes, and the boat says, get in. Come on, like, I'll save you. And he says, no, that's okay. God's coming. Don't worry about it. And then finally a helicopter comes, and again, he says, no, I don't need the help. And then he drowns, and he meets God in heaven. And God says, what happened? I sent you your neighbor. I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. What else did you want? And we wanted to bring up that kind of joke, that parable today, because we see some similarities around dating. Like, God needs us in our life to also be taking action. We believe that he also needs us to be doing our part. So when it comes to dating and not drowning, what that looks like is going on dates, starting conversations with men, being on dating apps even. And also something else we're going to talk about today is learning the skills that you need to be a godly woman in a relationship. So whether that's communication or connection to your femininity or understanding men, those are all crucial pieces and steps you can actively be taking while you are also waiting on God to do his part to help you meet that man.
Yes, and it's very hard to change something if we're not aware of it. So what we'll do is we'll just break down some of the most important skills within the dating process, so then that way you have step by step. These are the skills in order for me to get great at, in order for me to trust in God's timing and also do my part, right? So just really let that land for a second. There is a very big difference between passive surrender, passive trusting in God, and actively surrendering, actively trusting in God. One is, it's all up to God, I'm not going to do anything. The other is, it's all up to God, and I'm still going to do my part. So let's break it down. So within the dating process, there are 3 different ways that you can meet somebody, right? The first way is in person, right? You're at church and someone comes up to you and they say hello, or you start a conversation with somebody. That's the first way. The second way is online. That can be through Facebook, that can be through Instagram, that can be through dating apps, that can be through we've had clients through Facebook dating, Facebook groups, online forums, that we've heard it all.
Yeah.
And then the third way is through mutual friends. So that can be maybe even at work, that can be through friends, that can also be through family members, right? Someone has recommended this person. We've had many clients get into a relationship that way as well.
Yeah.
But if you think about, these are the 3 only ways that you can get into a relationship: in person, online, or through mutual friends.
Yes, well, something I want to just speak on for the
Yeah.
dating app thing, we've also seen this a little bit, right? So I think there can be a way that we, as women in general, want to romanticize the way dating looks. And we want to we want to have that fairy tale, romantic, in-person meeting. And I think that what we've seen, at least with Christian women, sometimes that can be even like pushed extra because there wasn't dating apps in the Bible, because it is kind of a newer thing, and because dating apps, they can be used in negative ways too, right? As much as it's, well, we believe there are positive parts to it, right? Of course. But then there are negative parts as well. like anything. But I'd be careful not to fall into that trap, that romanticizing that fantasy in your head,
Yes.
because you don't want to cut off one of those three ways of meeting someone. God can work through dating apps.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I loved this example that you brought up before. It's like if you got into a car accident and you had a broken leg and you said, you know what, I'm just going to trust God with it, I'm going to go home. You'd have a problem. You need to go to the doctor, obviously. They need to fix your leg up. And God works through that. Like God works through the knowledge of those doctors and the hospital to help you and fix your leg so that you can live. And similarly, God can work through this amazing technology that we have available to us called dating apps to help you meet a man. So don't automatically decide that you're not open to that.
Yeah. So we have the meeting process, right? If we just break it down into a scale for a second, in order for you to get to a relationship or get married, if we look at this side of the scale, at the start of the scale is meeting somebody, but then there's also getting into a relationship. So what happens in between meeting somebody and getting into a relationship? Well, there's a lot. There is the dating process. And what you want to think about is the dating process for the man and for you, but the dating process is like a trailer to the future of the relationship. So if there isn't a focus on learning the skill set around dating, it will be very unlikely that the dating process will ever get into a relationship stage. And if you don't focus on the dating skills, that also transfers into being in a relationship. Very rarely will someone be inspired to get down on one knee to say, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. So there are the skill sets that you bring to dating, and then there is also who you are as a woman that you bring to the dating process. So there's the practicality, and then there's also the internal that we get to focus on. So let's go through a few of them. Does anything jump out to
Yeah,
you?
so for sure communication is one,
Yes.
conflict resolution, even in dating, right? You actually want little conflicts to come up because you want to have practice in working through those and you want to see how you guys work through them together. So not a bad thing. Conflict resolution, communication, your femininity, embodying your healthy femininity, which is both softness and your inner strength. So both of those are really important to develop. And also within femininity, it's understanding how you can best relate to and understand men. Because men in their masculinity, they're different than us in our femininity. And so those are a few skills that I can think of. What other ones can you think of?
There are a lot. One of them is knowing how to discern whether this person is worth continuing to pursue a relationship, with. So if there is no internal GPS system that gives you the clarity on how to know if this person is right for you or not, if this person is someone who God would be looking down and be like, I approve of that. Here is my stamp of approval. If there is no discernment, and discernment, by the way, discernment just means your ability to judge well. Now, this can be challenging, especially when there is chemistry, especially when there is high emotion, especially when there is unresolved trauma that may be affecting or infecting the way that you show up with somebody. Because if you just latch onto somebody and there is very little logic to go, wait, are we compatible? Is this just my emotions clouding judgment here? Then you can fall into the process of getting into a relationship with someone who is not right for you, or having the dating process. Instead of it being 3 months, it may be 3 years because you're with someone who doesn't actually want commitment. So it's so important to know what compatibility is. We also have a free guide, rather than like breaking it down into that's a 40-minute video. We have a free guide where you can learn how to know whether someone is compatible for you or not, and we break down what compatibility is. It's totally free. So we'll leave that down below. Just click on that, put in your details, and you'll be able to read through it. And if you're listening to the podcast, you'll see it in the description as well. So knowing how to choose a partner is I believe it's one of the most important things, because let's say that you were spending the rest of your life, and God willing that you're able to go 80 years and you're 30 years old. That's 50 years that you're going to be spending with somebody. Don't you think that would it be pretty important to put some attention and intention into knowing, how do I know if this person is great for me or not? Rather than just going, oh, we're attracted. This person's Christian. Great. This is going to work well. If we just rely on attraction and also the mutual value of just being Christian, it will inevitably, maybe, it may lead to destruction later on. So that's what comes to mind for me. There are a few other things, but anything else?
Yeah, well, I think one thing I'll add to that is it's important in your discernment and dating process to not make assumptions based off what he says his values are. This goes for all different values, but especially with Christianity,
Yes.
because I'm sure you've experienced someone who says they're Christian, but they don't walk with Jesus. They're not trying to pursue their Christian life. And so it's so important to go slow in the dating process. And I'd say this is a dating skill. And also being able to watch his actions over time to see if he's really a man of God and not
Yes.
to just get wrapped up in his words. And you have your own part of that too, right? Like walking as a woman of God, if you want to attract that, like matching that energy. But it's important to not fall into that trap of thinking, oh, he's Christian, so and he's attractive, so let me just latch on and decide he's the one.
Absolutely. Another thing that a lot of Christians in general just don't really practice is flirting. This is a skill. And it's important to know the pacing of this as well, because sometimes, actually, we work with so many women where they tend to date Christian men, but they lead with flirting, and then it's just over sexualization in the early stages of dating. And then it tends to lead to that guy just wanting one thing for one night. And it's so important to know, again, this is a skill set. So we'll do our best to go into what we can during this video. But this is a big part of what we teach our clients, knowing how to flirt, because there's compatibility, which is having mutual values, mutual vision. There's so much more. And that will allow the foundation for a long-lasting relationship. And at the same time, what makes a difference between a friend and a lover? It's chemistry. It's mutual attraction. It's the masculine and feminine polarity. So knowing how to do that is also a skill that I would highly recommend getting really great at.
Yeah, and don't think that attraction is something that you should not look for, because God created that.
Or
right?
it's sinful, right?
Yeah.
It can come across in ways that may not be great, and at the same time, it's still important.
Right. If it goes into lust, then no.
Yes.
But it's important to be attracted. It's important to prioritize that value as well.
Yes. And if you don't know how to flirt, I believe one of the best ways to do indirect flirting, where there is a man that gets pulled towards you, because that's what flirting is. Flirting is it's like a tension that creates this pull towards someone. So men actually have a bit more of a challenge with this, but I would say for women, you tell me if you agree with this, but I believe that if women were to get even just being in their feminine, if that's all you do, then you will have a man be pulled towards you because of you being in your feminine. It can be that simple.
Yeah.
And also there is a skill set around that as well.
Totally. I think it's magnetic.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So we have the dating stage, right? So then there is the knowing how to choose someone. There is the ability to pace, right? Having a dating plan. We go through that in our program when we mentor women, going through 3 phases of dating. And then there's also the skill on knowing when to bring up the commitment conversation. This is a real important thing, because knowing when and also knowing how to bring up the commitment conversation. So it can be very easy to fall into the mental trap that I'm going to wait passively, going back into passive versus active, waiting passively for the man to bring up the commitment conversation. So do you want to expand on that?
Yeah. So there can be this belief in society in general that men should make all the first moves. And I think that there's truth to that, right? It's like there's a truth and a lie in there. There's nuance we want to get into. So yes, I completely agree. You want to feel a man pursuing you. You want to feel his masculinity. That's good. And you have a part to play in him pursuing you and making that first move. So what we like to call that is you as the feminine get to create the opening or the invitation for him to pursue you. And as well with the commitment conversation, so, it's not just waiting for him to bring it up. it is having the skill of being able to communicate that in a feminine and clear way so that also invites him into commitment and invites him into the vision of your relationship.
We've actually put together a training that brings what we just spoke about into more concise steps. It's called Ready for Love. So if you want to go through that training, I would highly recommend that. It's also totally free. We'll leave that down below in the description. But I think that following those steps that we laid out here would be very helpful for you.
Yeah, and I also want to acknowledge you, whoever's listening to this, like just acknowledge you for your trust in God,
Yes.
because that is a beautiful and critical piece as well. So it's kind of like a scale. We don't want to go too far in where we start passively just waiting on God's timing, but we also don't want to be on the other end of the scale thinking it's all up to me. I have to take all the actions, and that can cause stress, and that's not true. So we want to find that healthy balance in the middle of trusting God, going to God in prayer, listening for His signs, and taking the action. So that's what we encourage you guys to find in this video.
So we would love to know what you think in the comment section down below. Let us know what was your biggest takeaway. Let us know if you disagree. Let us know if you agree. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So leave that down below. And if you want to go ahead and watch the next video here, just go ahead and click that, and we'll see you in the next one.